Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Roger H3, and today I'll be going through quite a few tips to help everybody improve in Overwatch, both for competitive and quick play. All these tips that I'm going to go through are going to root from my own experiences and the hundreds of hours that I have on Overwatch, as well as these are tips that I continue to try to work on myself and make sure that I implement in my own gameplay and my own Overwatch journey. I don't know about you all, but for me personally, I'm trying to be the best I can so when competitive 3.0 launches, I'm able to get a jump start on the ranks and make a push to get as high as I can. Also, if you're not already, please subscribe to the channel to help support me as I continue to grow. If you enjoy the video, please drop a like and leave a comment on your thoughts, personal tips, and how you feel about the launch of competitive 3.0. But let's go ahead and get on with the topic of the video. Also, if you guys need, feel free to use the chapters or bookmarks marked on the YouTube timeline for the video if you want to see a specific tip or review a specific portion of the video. So to begin the video, tip number one I have is to be open to learning. Now, this may sound kind of stupid to some people, but if you don't approach the game with the mindset of being open to learning and learning new things and figuring out how to get better, you're not gonna learn anything or get better. It's more of a mindset standpoint that if you go to school and you're studying something, but if you go to your school and you're miserable and hate what you're doing and you don't attempt to learn, obviously you're not going to retain as much information as you would if you go to school and you take it with a high positive attitude and you go in and you're like, today or every single day, I want to learn one new thing or I want to get better at something. If you come in with that positive attitude and try your best to learn each and every time you play Overwatch, you will be able to learn and grow as you continue to play the game. Now, the next question is how do you learn while you play Overwatch? Well, the best places to continue to learn is to learn from your mistakes, figure out what you're doing wrong, learn from others' mistakes, your teammates, your friends you might play with, or anybody in the game that you might see. And lastly, watch some free content on YouTube. There's a lot of great YouTube people who go out and they post numerous VOD reviews. They talk about things that you can always do to get better. Granted, a lot of these people are much higher ranks than you may be, but it's still a great place to go and learn and figure out how you should be playing properly. Watch some tutorials on how do I learn this character or how do I play this map better, and those will help you get better as well. Now, rooting from the idea of being open to learning as you continue to play Overwatch, next up we have is it's not just your team's fault. There's something that you're probably doing wrong or that you can do better to help your team succeed. So if you go into a game, say you're playing an extremely close game, you're playing on a push map, the one team pushed the robot 113 meters, but you guys only pushed it 112, but you feel your one support didn't use their ability as you wanted them to, and that's why you lost the game. Now, as you continue to get in higher ranks, obviously some of these more smaller, minute situations might make that huge of a difference in a game. However, there's probably an extremely high chance that there was a team fight before that you messed up and died that you guys could have won, or you were in a bad position maybe when there was 3 minutes left in the game, and that's what allowed the other team to push the robot that far. So it's important to realize that there's stuff that everybody can improve on, and nobody is a perfect player. We can sit here and talk about matchmaking all we want and say that matchmaking is just not good, you're getting bad teams, but are you doing what you can do best to enable your team? Or are you just going off on your own, trying to do your own thing, which in turn is actually making your team play worse? Additionally, rooting off the idea of being open to learning once again, one of the ways you can continue to learn from your mistakes and others' mistakes, as I mentioned, is doing VOD reviews. Now, a lot of people don't think about it, but doing VOD reviews is actually really important to continuing to learn how to play Overwatch better and grind through the ranks. How do you think you're going to get better and go from gold to diamond if you never know what you're doing wrong, you never take the time to sit down and look at what you're doing wrong? Well, the answer is once again, you're not going to rank up if you don't know what you're doing wrong and you don't do VOD reviews. Even watching all these YouTube channels and YouTube creators talk about what you should be doing and how you should play a character and how you can get out of the so-called ELO hell and get to where you need to be, well, none of that's going to matter unless you know what parts of those videos and what parts and tips of these videos that you need to implement in your game. And the only way you're going to know how to do that is if you go back and watch your old gameplay and see what you're doing wrong, what your positioning is, and where you need to improve. Now, talking about positioning actually leads me into my next tip as well, which is practice. And practice entails a lot of different pieces. Practice is not just simply get better at aim, get better at positioning, get better at cooldown rotation. practice contains all of these items. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty difficult to practice everything at once, so it's imperative that you set up goals so you can take steps towards getting better at each item that you want to improve at. Some things you can practice outside of live gameplay, like your aim, where you can go into aim trainers and play some custom games just to get warmed up before each game. But then other things you need to do in-game, like positioning. You can always continue to learn how to have better positioning, but then you want to practice doing it in the game. Now, I suggest, in terms of identifying things that you need to practice on, as you continue to learn and review your VODs and watch some educational YouTube content, take some mental notes or even actual physical notes with paper and pencil or in your phone, and write down some things that you think you need to improve on. And each time you go to play a game, make sure you try to improve on those areas that you have listed. Now, this does lead me into another tip that I have written down for you all, and this goes more specifically for the people who play competitive, but the best way to practice to play competitive is to play in competitive. Now, I know one concern about trying to learn while you're playing competitive is you don't want to mess up your rank, especially if you've been working extremely hard to hit Plat, Diamond, Masters, or something that was just your set goal that you wanted to reach for a long time and you finally made it. But the hard truth is you can't always expect quick play to give you a great look to improve your comp play. Now, obviously quick play is a great place to go if you're trying to learn a new character or do a completely new playstyle, but at the end of the day, your quick play games are probably going to be significantly different than what your competitive games are. Now, if you're not interested in competitive and you only play quick play, then obviously you can continue to play quick play for everything and that's your place to be. But whenever you go to get into competitive, you might find your games might be a bit different than what you run into on quick play. Now, if you're sitting here and you're like, man, Roger, I can't practice in competitive because my rank's gonna go down because I worked so hard to get to where I am and I just can't risk it. And here's my response to you guys. I've been there too. I deranked about 5 ranks this past season, which was really upsetting to me, but I've been working to grind back to get back to the rank that I am and climb higher than where I already was. However, this did really make me see the value in creating an alternate account, and I think creating an alt account, for those of you who take Overwatch very seriously, is something you should really consider doing, and it would be very helpful in your Overwatch journey as you continue to learn how to play. So my next tip is, you should definitely consider actually making an alt account. It's really worthwhile and it gives you an opportunity to practice new things, but not stress out about your rank. Now, I'm not saying I condone smurfing or trying to throw games. I'm saying just purely to have a second account where you can practice different techs, you can practice different heroes, and you can just try new things while still being able to be competitive. Now, the next tip I have for you all is actually another very, very important one. And the tip is to understand what each character actually does. Now, I'm not saying that you need to be good with every single character. Actually, I'm not saying that at all. But it is very important that you understand what each character does. By knowing what all the characters do, even if you aren't an expert at them, you're able to have a higher IQ when it comes to playing the game. You'll have a better idea of how to play against each character. So if somebody's playing dive against your team, you have an idea of what you should do to play around that. If somebody's playing poke against your team, you have an idea of what to do against that. Additionally, you know what to expect from people who are playing different heroes on your team. If you've never played with somebody who played a Reaper before, you might be a little confused as to what you do if you have a Reaper on your team. Now, if you've taken the time to play a little bit of different kinds of heroes, then you're going to understand if somebody picks a Reaper on your team, how you might be able to play with them and help them out as they go for their flank routes and do different things. Also, by experimenting with different heroes, you might find that the heroes you thought were your main picks actually are not your main picks, and you might like or find that you're better at other heroes than what you currently think you are. Now, rolling into tip 8 on my list here, queuing with a team isn't actually always better than solo queuing. If you're trying to force wins with people that you don't always play with, or people who you just don't play well with, you're probably going to end up losing more games than you win. Even if your friend or person you're playing with you think is really good, or you think they have a Smurf account, or they're way better than the rank you guys are playing in, if this person's a negative influence on you, or if you guys continue to keep losing games, that's not going to help you or them out. Not to mention, if the person you're playing with you think is way better than you might end up in a situation where they just carry you up the rank, but as soon as you don't play with them, you might find out that you don't belong in the rank you're playing in, so you're going to drop back down and you never really learned anything. So it's imperative that when you go in and you queue with a team, whether it be duos, trios, or if you have a full stack, it's really nice if you have a lot of people who are in similar skill ranges so you can all continue to learn from each other and build good teamwork so that you can all grind together. However, if you have people who are bad people to queue with, you don't win very much, it's toxic, then obviously you don't want to play with these people. Now, speaking of toxicity, that actually leads me into tip 9, which is ignore the toxicity. Now, trust me, I personally know I've fallen suit to it. It is very difficult to get past the toxicity in this game, or let alone any games these days. But you just can't let it get to you personally. There's a lot of people in these games that say a lot of messed up stuff they shouldn't say. And at the end of the day, I hate to say it, but you're better off, unfortunately, just ignoring them and not getting involved with the conversation. If you need to, make sure you mute people and turn off chat for a game if people are getting extremely bad. Obviously, I don't recommend doing this all the time because it is important to have communication with your team, but if you're trying to just finish out a game, just ignore what people are saying. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for having a good time, smack talking, making some jokes, but when some people come in the chat and say some of the things that they do, some of it's just really ridiculous and uncalled for. So if you run into situations like that, try to not get too involved, unfortunately, and just try to make it through the game and then go into the next game with a fresh set of mind with new teammates that you hopefully won't have to deal with anything like that. Which also partially rooting from toxicity and partially rooting from just the nature of playing a competitive game. But my last tip for you all is try your best to not tilt queue. I know it's really difficult to avoid tilt queuing, especially if you're one win away from ranking up, or if you just want to have a good night and keep playing Overwatch and you played 3 games and all 3 of them were bad and you're just really upset, but you're like, well, I want to keep playing. But the thing is, and the sad part about it is once you have a few bad games, if you already are in that mental state where you're extremely upset, you're not playing how you normally would, you're trying to go off and do things that you normally wouldn't do, but you're just trying to go off because you feel like your team's just bad and they're not able to back you up. This is just going to create more losses, more lost streaks, more toxicity for yourself and people around you. And as I mentioned, I know it's difficult to take a step away and take a break, but just remember, it's always important to take a breather. Maybe if you have a really bad set of games, you can go back and do a VOD review on those and maybe take a look and say, hey, what did I do wrong here? What can I improve on? Take a breath, take 10 or 15 minutes, grab some water, get some food, and then you can get back on the game. Now, once again, obviously, not everybody's perfect. I am not perfect. I do this. And also, all these tips, there's times where I don't follow them and I need to, which is why I'm taking the time to share them all with you, because I think these tips can help out anybody, no matter what your rank is. But this does conclude all the tips I have for you all today. If you guys liked the video, please make sure you drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Also, drop a comment on the video. Let me know if these tips help you guys out, what you think about them, if there's any tips you think I missed. And then lastly, if you guys aren't already and you would like to, please join the Discord. The link will be in the bottom of the description of this video and on my YouTube channel. And there we just always have conversations about gaming, life, and plan some custom games. But once again, thank you all for stopping by and we'll see you later.